Okay, gentlemen, it is time for another album review. And for this review, Duncan, Kyle, and I have been checking out the new album from Belgian post-metalers Psychonaut. The immense success of Psychonaut's Pelagic debut album, Unfold the Godman, which has been repressed 3 times throughout the pandemic.
Jesus Christ.
And sold close to 3,000 vinyl copies.
Well done.
Has proven that Psychonaut are a force to be reckoned with. The 3 gentlemen from Belgium now return with a ferocious and muchly anticipated concept album that proclaims for the formation of a new world through the acceptance of a new human identity. We've always been interested in religion, spirituality and philosophy, explains vocalist guitarist Stefan de Graaf about the music of Psychonaut. We meditated together, we had long discussions about the nature of life, and we share a common vision. Now, with the release of their sophomore album Violate Consensus Reality, the Belgian 3-piece take you on a visceral trip into our collective human consciousness. A journey marked by explosive riffs, soaring vocals, and intricate yet catchy compositions. An impressive album which cements Psychonaut standing as aspirants into the throne of the contemporary European progressive post-metal community. Considering their noble goal of envisaging a brighter world, Psychonaut have chosen a seemingly peculiar album title, yet somehow it perfectly captures the nature of the record. It's all found in the word violate, which is always a negative word. For example, a violation of rights, a person getting violated, etc. It's never positive, and certainly in the light of recent events, the Me Too movement, the COVID pandemic, the overturning of Roe versus Wade by the US Supreme Court, an especially powerful image. On the contrary, the word consensus is generally considered a positive notion, but on Violate Consensus Reality, it is the central idea against which the band declaim. So, gentlemen, Unfold the Godman, that actually came out the year we started Metal Epidemic.
Yep.
I think it was maybe about a month before we did our first podcast, so we didn't actually get a chance to review it. But actually it was an album that I came back to quite a lot throughout that year. And it was mentioned, amongst quite a few different end-of-year lists as well. However, 2022, gentlemen, has been pretty spectacular for post-metal as a genre.
One could say it's the year of post-metal, Dave.
Could be. It could quite be, Duncan. I mean, I was charging that year of hardcore for a while there, but post-metal, they seem to be contending here a little bit.
Fucking nowhere.
Some utterly sublime post-metal releases in 2022. And now we have a Psychonaut release to add to that mix, which is
why not?
Just insane.
Why not Psychonaut? Also, their blurb there at the beginning just made me feel incredibly lazy, and that they're meditating together, discussing philosophy, and the best we can get is 3 of us on a camera before we hit record, one of us usually talking about the failed masturbation experience we'd had the night before, and never in a kind of physiological aspect, or even a psychological aspect, or even a philosophical point of view. It's always in a kind of, that happened.
Yeah.
And I was going, right, we might want to go and see about that. Yeah, and I was immensely curious. I did check out the previous one actually, because you were speaking about it in the year that we formed in the year of our Lord 2019, 2020. So yeah, it was one that I was when you said that they had a new album out. The first thing I thought was, didn't feel that long since the last one had come out, but I think COVID robbed us all of 2 years, so it kind of feels like it was yesterday when clearly it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it probably robbed the band a lot as well. Considering
I can't imagine they did much touring in the way of anything. And an album like this doesn't come together quickly, if you know what I mean. So it sounds like maybe they used the time creatively. So.
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken about this band in the past. Duncan and I have spoken about Psychonaut. Kyle, I don't know what his thoughts are on Psychonaut because they released an album before Metal Epidemic and before Kyle. So
BK, that's right, BK, not Burger King, before Kyle.
So I've no idea what he thinks of this. I know he's quite a fan of the old post metal, but I don't know what he thinks of this album. So, Kyle, what did you make of this new album from Psychonaut?
It's a band that flew under the radar for me because before Metal Epidemic and before I joined Metal Epidemic, and of course I'd kept my thumb on some metal stuff, but it wasn't as up to date as I am now.
Yeah,
clearly, because I'm always like, I never heard of this band every fucking week. Yeah, but whatever. We all have things that we just haven't heard of, and for me, it's every metal band ever.
In fairness, there's a lot of knots out there. There's a lot of bands that end in knots. So
yeah, it's true.
There's only one Psychonaut.
Only one. Yeah. What I want to know is, do these bands just have no fucking respect or consideration or anything for the poor fuckers like us that have to listen to one of the best albums of the year this late in the year? You bastards. Absolutely Indeed. Should go and sit in the fucking corner, the lot of them. We're nearing the midpoint in October, and I had to listen to this album no less than 6 times because I loved it that much. And I'm just sat here going, my top 10 of the year list is absolutely fucked right now.
Yeah.
And I blame Psychonaut.
You'll be thankful, Kyle, that we have a top 20 list at the end of the year, so there's room in there to move things around.
It's still tough, even with 20. I'm just sat here going, how the fuck am I going to make this work? Every week it seems there's something else that goes in. That has to go in there. Where? Yeah. And Psychonaut, they're not going to be like number 18. They're going to be top 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you took like Mastodon, Sixth and Tall and rubbed them around in the dirt a bit and took off all their clothes, you'd probably get something like this band. Because there's like bits of each of it. In the riffs, there's some like frenetic energy like Sixth in the riffs, and the fucking drummer is always playing a fill, just like in Mastodon. He's never playing a straight groove. He's like, I'm going to go up here now and over there. And I'm like, that's how you play drums. That's how I play drums. That's why I never went for drums. And like, there was a couple of moments that were like Tall as well. I was like, this is great. But like not like shit Tool, but really good Tool.
Yeah, there is no shit Tool, Kyle. I don't know what
that last album was good.
Was great.
Was
it the best Tool has done? No, but it's still better than the new Slipknot album.
By a fucking sight.
If you stop pulling that face, I will come through there.
About the same.
We're going to meditate together, and you will see the light for it. So,
wax philosophically about Tool.
I'll just wax each other, one of the two.
Okay.
Here we go. Easy.
This is going.
Oh, man. No, I love this. Clearly, absolutely loved it to pieces. I love the riffs, the song progressions, because they're not like direct verse, chorus. They're like, here's a long intro, and here's a bit of a thing, and then we'll go off a bit, and then we'll come back to the thing. And I love the bass tone, because I can hear it, and it's there, and it's present, and I love it. I love the mix of the clean and the growling vocals at the same time. You don't hear that often, and it's something I've always wanted to experiment with my band, but we've never gotten around to it. But these guys have fucking crushed it. It took me back. I was like, wow, that's such a good... I don't know if it's the same guy just overdubbing himself or if they've got a background singer. I have no idea, because that guy's range is unbelievable. He can do this clean, somber stuff so well, and then the growly equally well. And then he puts them on top of each other, and I'm like, hey, you blew me away. Great. Good job. And in the mid...
Insane. I think the bassist does vocals as well. I think they get it's a 3-piece, believe it or not. But
what the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me? There sounds like 18 fucking people.
No. There's 3 of them. So let that sink in. 3.
Fuck off, Psychonaut. 1 out of 5. Oh my god, I love that they mixed in the lady singer too.
Yes.
In and out. It didn't use it too much. It just came in to like punctuate some points of the album. I was like, that's fucking brilliant. It's just the piano playing as well. Like, you get a piano player in an album like a metal album. It's always just sort of some simple plinky plonky whatever. But this is like absolutely some of the best.
Coming in hard for Andrew WK there.
It works on Andrew WK because that's all you need. But otherwise, it's just like, here's a bit of a piano riff and they'll go into metal. But these guys are like, here's some piano playing, like actual. And I was like, this is incredible, and it's not misplaced or anything either. I absolutely just, I can't jerk this album off enough, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to, because a band named Psychonaut, I didn't know what to expect. I had no clue. I was just like, this could be fucking cyber metal for all I know, with 5-string guitar and loads of synthesizers. But no, it was absolutely right up my street. So I had a very good time with this 6 times.
6 times.
I think I might be a massive post metal fan by the end of this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it kind of blows my mind that these guys are a 3-piece. Like, I was listening to this album, I was like, what the fuck, man? Like,
fuck off, 3-piece.
like,
they can't be. They have a secret
really?
member.
3? Like, I mean, it sounds huge, like, absolutely huge. And it just, like, I was like, this is the album. This is their second album. Like, how are they putting out an album like this on their second album? Like, that is fucking ridiculous. Come on, man. Like, and there's moments in here that that sound like, your bands you mentioned, Mastodon. There's bits of Baroness and stuff and all that sort of stuff in there. But those bands didn't sound like this on album 2. I mean, those guys, those bands took 3 or 4 albums to actually hit their stride and start to put out like those albums that people are still talking about. 20 years down the line or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, I think what is the most impressive for me is the fact they can kind of do it all. Like at this stage in their career, they've got the big monolithic post-metal riffs, right? They've got that down, and they can easily transition to something ambient or atmospheric, or even some of them a bit of blended melody, and those deviations are all over this album. And to be honest, that's usually where most post-metal albums will end. That's usually what they encapsulate for the majority of post-metal bands anyway. But Psychonaut have these like further strings to their bow. They have this really intelligent progressive streak that throws a kind of level of complexity into their sound and almost gives them this extra dimension they can reach for, like just whenever it's needed. And it completely breaks up any feeling of kind of reoccurrence that a lot of post-metal albums have. They often feel quite repetitive, but these like constantly twisting riffs or drum fills keep you on your toes the entire time, and you're never quite sure where they're going to take it. And I kind of love that. When it transitions into something really heavy, it feels so right. That opening track just, it has some real like holy shit type moments, where it goes from something really fluid and winding into something just straight up and pummeling. Age of Separation is another great example of that, like really progressive heaviness that has that kind of like tangled kind of Mastodon type feel in the riffs, but it's got an undertone of something heavier, more oppressive, something like maybe Amenra or Church of Luna. But I think their secret weapon here is the vocals. I think they can pretty much go anywhere with them. That guy can do the gravelly, like scorched earth vocal for days, and it sounds effortless. Tracks like Interbeing are littered with these really just savage screams, but the melodies on this album are kind of where a lot of the genius lies, to be honest. I think their consideration for the timing and when to kind of drop in that big soaring vocal melody or that kind of delicate voice is absolutely spot on. It's very reminiscent of Baroness at times, as I mentioned, but I don't think even Baroness were nailing it like this on album number 2, to be honest. Their delivery here is just so confident in their belief in their ability. You would think this, like if someone hadn't told you this was album 2, you'd be like, oh, this band have been on the go for a long time. This is probably album 5 or 6. And when you kind of like pour all of that into the one pot, it makes one hell of an album. Aside from all the individual elements on this that they've absolutely nailed, the arrangement and the flow of the album is absolutely perfect. Just I love the way they kind of brought the intensity down in the middle of the album on the title track and Hope. I thought it was a great idea. It lets the band become even more immersive and shows you kind of how good they are at controlling that kind of light and shade. I agree with you, Kyle. I think the female vocal on the title track just adds this really kind of beautiful contrast and texture in the vocals. Hope felt very atmospheric, very cinematic, which created this kind of perfect middle piece on the album, and it lived up to its title being like very uplifting, having this kind of feeling of hope in it. And then Interbeing starts to build the intensity again before they let loose with A Pacifist Guide to Violence, which is far more pacey in rhythm. The chords are thicker, more dissonant, and the vocals are utterly scathing. Obviously, they still litter the track with, you know, various kind of progressive clean sections, very Tool-esque. I agree with you, Kyle. But they predominantly keep it quite heavy, and I think they deliver probably the most emotive track on the album, Closer, which is Towards the Edge, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Really, really good melodic vocal lines on that last track. Really
12-minute song doesn't feel like 12 minutes.
It doesn't, absolutely not. It felt like the kind of most poignant moment of the album. Quite little kind of tones of like the ocean in there at times, but it still had enough of Psychonaut's kind of personality that you could separate it from, you know, other bands. I thought this was phenomenal. I thought that the playing was top notch. The songwriting has somehow even leveled up since 2020. And the way they've constructed the album just works perfectly. I think it's as heavy as it is emotional and interesting. I think it has it all. And yeah, I kind of feel like a broken record right now, because last month I feel like I said the words album of the year contender so many times, but like this last quarter of the year has kind of begun as possibly the strongest of them all. And this is another album that will 100% be mentioned on end of year lists. And if it's not, then it's a fucking travesty, because this album is awesome, ridiculously good. Duncan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, echoes and shades of what's been mentioned already. I really like I'm an album guy, so to me, like, a flow is very important, especially in post-metal, because post-metal demands a lot of attention, because the tracks are deliberately paced, you know, certain structures and long-form tracks that will, some people will say repetitive, I would say build to something. And that's kind of not something it's not a trapping they fall into for an album that definitely grabs elements of post-metal whilst being, I would say, more on the progressive wing of that. There are definitely shades of the ocean here for sure. Elements of the kind of choir compositional stuff reminded me of Tool. We mentioned them already. Baroness was a band that instantly sprung to mind, maybe more over than someone of a kind of Mastodon realm, just because Baroness are in a similar vein but lean more towards the kind of proggy side of things, certainly towards the melody. So it has that. It's produced beautifully. What I love about the album and its structure is that the first 3 tracks are really, really playful in terms of how heavy they are, to their actual even construction of the rhythm. The second track, All Your Gods Have Gone, starts off in not the fashion. It's not like I think it's over 4/4, but the beat's just different. And it's a different way. It kind of throws you on the back foot when every other band will kind of tell you that track number 2 needs to hit in with something that people can get in with. Age of Separation kind of expands that out, and then you get the middle 2 tracks. So it's almost like the first 3 tracks are an act in themselves. The middle 2 tracks, Violate Consensus Reality, female vocals opening the track, and it takes you in this nice odyssey right through. Once again, hitting those heavy moments, hitting those quiet moments, and then in the hope, which kind of resets, like we said before, does feel very cinematic, but it kind of feels like the close of a second act, and then you're on to this kind of reconstruction of their sound towards the end, through Interbeing, A Pacifist Guide to Violence, and Towards the Edge. All 3 tracks working really, really well. The flow in it is just immaculate. The songwriting and craftsmanship is immaculate. The vocal melodies are hauntingly beautiful. I mean, like, just attention. It's the attention to detail. I think sometimes it's easy to overlook how difficult it is to do certain aspects and remain interesting without really utilising the same tools over and over again. And they certainly do that. We may have lost our recording here, but that's on Dave if we have. But like we continue to kind of journey through the album in a really, really positive way, specifically with the band doing elements of reconstruction, which you're just not, it's the same component parts, but they're just approached that from a different angle, which is not easy. Like, bands have a concept of how melody should conform in a song. That's why bands have a sound. And Psychonaut have a sound without it being conventionally composed. It's really, really weird to put your finger on, but it's very gratifying to listen to. It never not delivers on the elements that you want. So I was kind of blown away by how this was put together. Yeah. And then on top of all that as well, the songwriting, just the component guitar, bass, drums, and additional stuff here, piano, strings, synths, backing vocals and vocals as well. It is so well put together with a precision that you're just not used to getting. And this is where the post-metal, this was always the post-metal promise. The post-metal promise is a genre which is meticulous in its design. It's been utilised for these kind of monolithic heavy parts, that the fact that the prog stuff and bands like The Ocean are a big reason that they're, are a catalyst for a lot of this. But when you listen to them do what they do, and you get those proggier elements in and those huge swaths of melody, but handled with the same precision and care as the heavier parts, that's what makes it one of the more rewarding genres. It's also what I think is the COVID time, I think has benefited a lot of bands from being able to craft those songs that way. Like, so put the time into, well, is this the best bit for the song? And treat the songs almost like movements in themselves, which I think is important. It's actual composition as opposed to songwriting, which are two completely different skill sets. Yeah. Great songwriters are not great composers, and great composers are not always great songwriters, because they're looking at two different aspects. Basically, one is looking at the micro level and one is looking at the macro level. Psychonaut are definitely looking at both, which is very unusual, and it's done incredibly well. So yeah, I was kind of bowled over by this, if I'm honest. Another amazing post-metal album right at the end of the year.
How dare they?
But they make it sound so effortless, and I think that's the issue.
That's the worst, best part, because it's like you just can feel that they're just sat like almost relaxed on their thing, just playing the guitar that crazily and putting all this stuff together. And I know you said before, but the production is absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. Like it's not super fucked with, it's not edited to death. It's absolutely just natural in how it should sound. You don't sit there and go, I didn't pick out anything, nothing jumped out at me at all, like, what the fuck did they do that for? Just nothing, not a single time.
It's like that way when you listen to, if you've ever, not that I encourage many, well, maybe I would encourage many metal listeners to do it. If you've ever listened to a recorded symphony, where like everything's just there, and there's no one fucking around with a mix there. Everything's just there. It's just good mic placement and like the pure understanding of how to play. And that's what it's like listening to this. It's composed and recorded immaculately. Is the only word I can think. It's an immaculate production without anything being over-egged at all in the sound. So that's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. So
awesome. So I was actually Googling there just while you were talking about the female vocal, because I was like, that vocal comes in and out, but I actually never realised who it was. But it's weird because we were chatting about this the other night, but it's Stephanie from Brutus that does the female vocal, which we were just talking about just a couple of nights ago.
It makes sense. She's got an incredible voice. They're another album that I cannot fucking wait for this year. It's going to be amazing. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, we've filleted that enough now. I think we can give it a grade.
Yes, I think we can. Kyle, what's your score for this new one from Psychonaut?
I'll give you one goddamn guess. This is a 5-star album. If there is a 5-star album with all of the fruit and everything.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. 5-star for me as well. I couldn't find anything to pick at all. There was nothing that I disliked about this album at all. Stunning album. Congratulations, guys. Absolutely brilliant. Duncan?
And they're getting a 5 from me on what I'm now dubbing us as the 5 Epidemic album reviews, because we're just giving them out like sweeties now at the end of the year. But it really is like this charge towards the end of the year is proving to be heavily dominated by post-metal, granted you, but none of them sound alike.
No.
I mean, none of these post-metal albums sound alike at all, and like I say, I struggle to quantify these guys as post-metal. I think their elements are more proggy than post-metally, but they're there. It's fucking great. It really is. It's an immaculate sounding album, and incredibly composed. There's nothing else you can say about it. It's just that good. So 5.
5. Nice. So Psychonaut Violate Consensus Reality drops on October 28th on Pelagic Records. I will put some links below if you're listening to this on Spotify. If you're watching it on YouTube, links below to the band, to the Bandcamp, all that sort of stuff. Check them out. Listen to the singles that have been released. Let us know what you think. And that is a review of the new album by Psychonaut.
Shine with